Hello, today I'm joined by Anthony Hobley, Partner and Global Head of Sustainability and Climate Change for international law firm Norton Rose Fulbright. Anthony is also President of the Climate Markets and Investors Association, the Verified Carbon Standards Association and the Climate Bonds Initiative. Anthony, in terms of UK PLC, how high up the agenda does sustainability sit right now in the boards and C-suites?
Well, Simon, I think that's a critical question. I'd say it's very high up the agenda. I think issues like, or events like the Arab Spring have demonstrated to the business community that resource scarcity is coming down the line and has a major impact. Albeit, I think many companies see the individual issues but are not joining the dots. But there are progressive companies that have done, and the progressive companies that are joining the dots understand that this goes to their license to operate. It goes to the way in which they manage systemic risk and therefore survival. And with that knowledge, they understand they need to innovate to remain competitive. And there's companies that are doing so. I think it is giving them significant competitive advantage.
How does the concept of value creation play a role in the day-to-day work that you do?
You know, if you want to be a trusted advisor, you've got to deliver value, and you've got to be able to communicate that in a language which your client understands. And so if we take an issue like sustainability, you've got to be able to demonstrate to that you know, what sustainability means to that organisation in the terms of risk and reward.
When you first engage in a dialogue with a client, what are the initial drivers that get you around the table? What sort of advisory services are your clients seeking? Well,
clients have a range of organisations and professional advisors they can go to. I think what makes any particular professional advisor stand apart is, I think, ideas relevant to risk and reward for that client, backed up by reputation and experience. And that's what differentiates you from your competitors. I mean, in a nutshell, that's what thought leadership is. It's about listening to your clients, understanding the problems that they face, and that's very relevant in the sustainability area, and then understanding how you can take those issues and present them with ideas that allow them to manage the risk that generates, or capitalise on the advantage that comes out of that change. And it's something we take seriously, Norton Rose Fulbright, and we invest in.
10, 20 years ago, we used to hear the term tipping point quite a lot, and a lot of the narrative in those days was around offsetting, which kind of alludes to a culture of carrying on as normal and then looking to engage in corrective measures. That really has changed now, hasn't it?
Yes. I mean, look, Simon, what we're really talking about here is change and systems change. We're talking about resource scarcity, which we've already seen in the context of water and food supply chains and fossil fuel scarcities. We overlaid, with that, we have a sort of climate change multiplier. But change in the business world and systems change is nothing new.
Anthony, do you believe companies have an innate responsibility to do good as opposed to not doing bad?
Well, sadly, companies are not human beings. They don't have a built-in conscience, so to speak. But they do have legal responsibilities. They have a responsibility to provide a return to their shareholders and manage risk. Now, in a world where we're facing resource constraints, increasing resource costs, and a increasingly unstable climate, the companies have to respond to that to deliver those fiduciary duties to their investors and shareholders. And that means that they have to deliver long-term competitive advantage in that unstable context. To take your sort of construct of good and bad, in effect that means they have to be more resource efficient. And the companies who will really have competitive advantage will be the ones who provide solutions to a resource-constrained world and a world with an unstable climate. Now, your second question, I think, goes to effectively sort of voluntary, versus a mandated approach, a regulated approach. Well, I think it's both. You need the leaders. You need the companies who will go out ahead, and we see plenty of examples, to prove that it can be done and to prove the business benefits and the financial return of doing that. But those companies rely on, I think, strong leadership from CEOs and boards who get it. And unfortunately, that's not the case in all companies. So those companies also need to understand that they won't be out there on their own, and that's where you need governments to act, to regulate with well-designed and efficient regulation, to sort of bring them, the rest along and ensure against free riders.
Let's talk about Norton Rose Fulbright now. To what extent is your organisation walking the walk in terms of sustainability?
Well, I think it's critical. I think with one of the world's leading legal practices in sustainability and climate change, it's critical that we're doing our bit. And we do our bit in two ways. One is our sort of physical impacts on the world, and two is the amount in which we're engaged in thought leadership in the sustainability and climate change space. Now, for some 5 years or more, we've had a sustainability committee, and with all things, if you don't measure it, you can't do anything about it. So step one, some years ago, was to bring our auditors in to look at our energy consumption, resource consumption, waste, and emissions, most of which are indirect through use of lights and electricity and televisions, for example. And over the last several years, we've been working to reduce our energy consumption through just better use of heating and the air conditioning, subtle adjustments. I was amazed to find out that the amount by which we can just actually turn off the air conditioning or heating in the evening because we have 24-hour security, a law firm, that's quite critical. We're able to have the doors open at night, so actually use natural air circulation, and just a simple issue of opening the doors in the evening can dramatically reduce these emissions. We also, I think, quite early on noticed we had quite a significant amount of food waste, and a lot of that was coming from our meeting rooms. You'll see over here, we've got a plate of biscuits. Those used to be the sort of, the sort of biscuits on a plate variety, but we worked out that in many meetings, these biscuits were not touched, and for hygiene reasons, they obviously, every plate of biscuits after a meeting had to be disposed of. So we on advice, sort of recognised that using packaged biscuits made an impact. Increasingly, you'll see we're sitting in one of our video conferencing suites. Increasingly, our partners and lawyers have been encouraged, where possible, and where it does not impact on sort of our service to clients, to use video conferencing. So there's a series of measures, and many of us now have our what do you call them, Boris bikes or Barclays bike keys, and find it actually much quicker and effective to go to meetings on one of the sort of Boris Barclays bikes. So yeah, there's a number of things. Now, in terms of what we're doing in the market, we've already mentioned, we're actively involved in a number of organisations like the Climate Market Investors Association, Energy, sort of Renewables UK, the sort of UK sort of body that represents the renewables industry. We're involved in the UK Environmental Law Association, the Legal Sector Alliance. I sit on the board of the Verified Carbon Standards Association. And again, if you talk to any of my partners, like Caroline May on the environment side, Nigel Hewitt on the planning side, Simon Curry in the energy side, Martin McCann on resources, and so on. They're all actively engaged in organisations that are working on issues that touch on climate change, sustainability, resource efficiency. Finally,
Anthony, what is your message to a company director who's watching this video, who's concerned about sustainability and obviously wants his or her children to grow up to be good citizens? What do they need to be thinking about?
Well, Simon, I think I'd say, stop thinking about it as an either or. It's not. Start to think about sustainability in terms of the systems in which the company operates, economic, physical, etc., and start translating sustainability into the right metrics. I've already mentioned in a previous question the oil and gas company that stopped thinking about it in terms of efficiency and emissions reductions and started thinking about it in terms of production and barrels of oil equivalent. This is about managing the risk and the systemic risk. So start thinking that you don't want your company to be the next Baldwin, Kodak, or Blockbuster. Perhaps you want your company to be the next GE, the company that really innovates from era to era and is around when your children are grown up and perhaps working in that company. It's about value and opportunity. I mean, let's face it, system is changing. In terms of a resource crunch, in terms of a changing climate, but change, means risk, yes, but it also means opportunity. And it's going to create a lot of opportunities to provide solutions to resource efficiency in a world where resources are more expensive and in a world where the climate is changing. So I think about it in those terms, value creation.